My teenage niece shattered her brother's last wish, and I'm still shaking. My sister Lisa called me at 6 a.m., sobbing into the phone. Maya destroyed everything. Come over now. I threw on clothes and drove straight to her house. When I walked through the front door, I saw $15,000 worth of art supplies scattered across the living room floor. Canvases slashed, paint tubes squeezed empty, brushes snapped in half. 17-year-old Maya sat on the stairs, still holding a box cutter, while her 14-year-old brother Derek lay in his hospital bed in the corner, connected to oxygen tubes and crying. She ruined it all, Derek whispered, his voice barely audible. My gallery show is next week. Those were my final paintings. Maya looked up at me with dead eyes and said, "Good. Maybe now people will stop pretending." My name is Rachel, and I'm watching my family fall apart over what everyone thought was a beautiful dying wish. Derek had been battling leukemia for 18 months, and his doctors had given him 3 months to live. The whole family had rallied around his dream of having an art exhibition before he died, raising money and organizing everything. But Maya's destructive act that morning revealed secrets that would destroy us all. Before that morning, Derek had been the golden child, the artistic prodigy who painted beautiful landscapes despite his illness. The local news had done a feature on him called Teen Artist's Final Masterpiece, and the community had donated thousands for his supplies and gallery space rental. Maya, meanwhile, had been labeled the troubled older sister who couldn't handle her brother's illness. Lisa worked double shifts as a nurse to pay for Derek's treatments while their father had walked out 6 months after the diagnosis, unable to handle the stress. Maya's grades had dropped from honor roll to barely passing, and she'd been caught smoking behind the school twice. Everyone assumed she was acting out because her brother was dying. The art exhibition had been Derek's idea, pitched to our family as his dying wish during a particularly bad hospital stay. "I want to leave something beautiful behind," he'd told us through tears. "Something that shows people can create even when they're falling apart." The whole family had thrown themselves into making it happen. Grandma Helen cashed out her retirement savings, contributing $8,000 for professional canvas and oil paints. Uncle Tom worked overtime at the factory to donate $3,000 for the gallery rental. Aunt Susan organized a GoFundMe that raised another $4,000 from the community. Everyone wanted to give Derek this one last dream. Maya had been notably absent from the planning, claiming she was too busy with school and work to help. When pressed, she'd snap at people or leave the room. Lisa blamed it on teenage jealousy and the stress of potentially losing her brother. "She'll regret not being part of this after Derek's gone," Lisa had confided to me. The morning I arrived at Lisa's house, Maya was sitting calmly in the destruction she'd created. Paint covered the hardwood floors in rainbow puddles, and Derek's nearly finished paintings lay in tatters. The piece he'd been working on for weeks, a portrait of our family, had been slashed right through the center. "Maya, what have you done?" Lisa screamed, grabbing her daughter's shoulders. This was Derek's final wish. How could you destroy his last chance at happiness? Maya shrugged her mother off and stood up slowly. "Because he's not dying," she said quietly. "And I can prove it." The room went silent except for Derek's oxygen machine humming in the corner. Lisa's face went white. "What are you talking about? Of course he's dying," the doctor said. Maya pulled out her phone and started scrolling through **TS. "The doctors said a lot of things. But they didn't say what you told everyone they said." Maya held up her phone, showing medical records she'd photographed. "Derek's latest blood work shows he's in complete remission. Has been for 4 months. His oncologist recommended stopping chemotherapy because there's no cancer left to treat." She swiped to another **T. "This email from Dr. Martinez says Derek is healthy enough to return to normal activities." Lisa lunged for the phone, but Maya pulled it back. "I've already sent copies to Uncle Tom and Grandma Helen. They should be getting them right about now." As if on cue, Lisa's phone started ringing. Tom's name appeared on the screen, but she didn't answer. "Derek is perfectly fine," Maya continued, her voice getting stronger. "But Mom told everyone the cancer was getting worse so people would keep donating money. She's been pocketing the GoFundMe donations and using Grandma's retirement money to pay off credit cards." Derek, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly sat up straighter in his bed. The movement was too quick, too easy for someone supposedly dying. Lisa noticed it too and **T him a warning look. "Derek, lie back down. You're too weak to sit up." But Maya wasn't finished. She pulled out more **TS, these showing bank deposits and credit card payments. Mom deposited $4,000 from GoFundMe into her personal account last week. She used Grandma's $8,000 to pay off 3 credit cards and buy a new car. The gallery rental was only $800, Not the $3,000 she told Uncle Tom. The front door opened and Tom walked in, his face red with rage. Behind him came Helen, moving slower but looking equally furious. Tom was holding printouts of the medical records Maya had sent. Lisa, you need to explain these lab results that show Derek has been cancer-free since February. Helen sat down heavily in the nearest chair, staring at Derek, who was now clearly uncomfortable being the center of attention. You've been lying about your own grandson dying, she asked Lisa, her voice shaking. You let me give you my entire retirement fund? Lisa started crying, but her tears felt different now. Less genuine. You don't understand. Derek was sick. He could have relapsed at any time. The doctors said to be cautious. Maya cut her off. The doctors said he was cured. I have the discharge summary right here. Derek finally spoke up, his voice much stronger than it had been minutes earlier. I never wanted to lie to anyone. Mom said we just needed a few more months to get back on our feet financially. He pulled off the oxygen tubes, revealing they weren't even connected to a machine. Just props to maintain the illusion. Tom exploded. A few more months? You've been scamming your own family for 4 months since Derek went into remission? I worked 60-hour weeks to help pay for a dying kid who wasn't dying. Helen started crying, not from sadness but from rage and betrayal. Maya walked over to Derek's hospital bed, which was actually just a regular bed with medical equipment positioned around it for show. She pulled back the sheets to reveal street clothes underneath his hospital gown. He's been getting dressed and going out with friends while you all thought he was bedridden. The art supplies I destroyed? Maya continued, gesturing to the mess on the floor. Most of it was cheap stuff from the craft store. Mom bought it for $200 and told everyone it cost $15,000. She pocketed the rest. Lisa couldn't deny the evidence anymore and collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. I looked around the room at my family falling apart and realized Maya hadn't destroyed her brother's last wish out of jealousy or anger. She'd exposed a massive fraud that had been stealing from everyone who loved Derek. How long have you known? I asked her. Since March, Maya said quietly. I found the medical records by accident when I was looking for my birth certificate for college applications. Mom had printed them out and left them on her desk. I saw complete remission and no evidence of disease, and couldn't understand why Derek was still pretending to be sick. She continued, I tried to tell people, but every time I brought up inconsistencies, Mom would say I was jealous or couldn't handle Derek's illness. When I showed Aunt Susan a photo of Derek playing basketball at school, she said I was being cruel and not supporting my dying brother. The room was quiet except for Lisa's crying and Helen's angry muttering in the corner. Tom was going through the bank records Maya had provided, his expression getting darker with each page. Lisa, you stole $23,000 from our family. $23,000 we scraped together because we thought Derek was dying. Derek finally found his voice. I wanted to tell everyone the truth in February when the doctors said I was cured. But Mom said we needed to wait because she'd already taken some of the donation money to catch up on bills. She promised it would just be a few more weeks. A few more weeks turned into 4 months of lying to everyone who loves you, I said, feeling sick to my stomach. Maya, why did you destroy the art supplies instead of just showing everyone the medical records? Maya's composure finally cracked. Because I tried everything else first. I showed Mom the records and begged her to tell the truth. I tried to hint to family members. I even called Derek's doctor directly, but she couldn't talk to me because of privacy laws. Nobody would listen. She wiped her eyes and continued, the art exhibition was supposed to happen next week. All of you would have been there, celebrating Derek's final masterpiece, while he wasn't even sick. I couldn't let that happen. I figured if I destroyed everything, at least the lie would have to stop. Tom looked up from the financial documents. According to these bank statements, Lisa spent the donated money on car payments, credit card debt, and a vacation to Florida last month, while we were all working extra hours and giving up our savings for Derek's medical expenses. Helen struggled to stand up, her face pale with shock. I gave you everything I had saved for my retirement, everything your grandfather and I put away for 40 years, and you spent it on a vacation. Lisa couldn't meet her eyes. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls and confrontations. Uncle Tom called the police to report fraud, but they said it was a civil matter since Lisa was Derek's mother and had legal access to the donated funds. The GoFundMe platform would need to investigate the misuse of crowd-funded money separately. Helen called her bank to see if any of the transferred money could be recovered, but since she'd given it willingly, there wasn't much they could do legally. The family members who donated their savings had no recourse except to try to collect through small claims court. Maya spent the afternoon showing me and Tom all the evidence she'd gathered over the months. Photos of Derek playing sports at school while supposedly bedridden. *TS of social media posts where he'd forgotten to maintain his sick persona. Bank records showing donations being diverted to personal expenses. I kept hoping Mom would do the right thing and tell everyone the truth, Maya explained. But every week it got worse. More people donated money, and Mom kept spending it. Derek kept performing this dying kid act, and everyone felt so sorry for him. Derek, no longer pretending to be weak, sat at the kitchen table looking miserable. I know what we did was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop it. When people started calling me brave and inspiring, it felt good after feeling sick and scared for so long. I didn't want to go back to being just a regular kid. Tom shook his head in disgust. You weren't just a regular kid, Derek. You were a kid who beat cancer. That's actually something to be proud of. But instead of celebrating your recovery with your family, you chose to pretend you were dying to scam money from people who love you. The local news station that had done the original feature story called that evening, wanting to do a follow-up about Derek's art exhibition. Lisa had to explain that the show was cancelled due to family circumstances. The reporter pressed for details, and eventually, the truth came out. Within a week, the story spread through our small town. The headline in the local paper read, "Family fakes teen's terminal cancer for donations." Derek became known as the kid who pretended to be dying, and Maya was labeled the hero who exposed the fraud. But Maya didn't feel like a hero. She'd lost her mother's trust, even though Lisa was the one who'd been lying. Derek wouldn't speak to her, blaming her for ruining his reputation and friendships. I could have told the truth gradually, he argued. You didn't have to destroy everything. Lisa faced consequences beyond family anger. The hospital where she worked as a nurse launched an ethics investigation after learning she'd used her medical knowledge to make Derek's fake illness seem convincing. She was suspended pending review and eventually terminated for violating professional standards. The GoFundMe platform refunded donations to contributors after Maya provided evidence of misuse, but not everyone got their money back. Some donors had given cash directly to Lisa, and that money was already spent on credit card payments and personal expenses. Helen had to sell her house to afford rent after losing her retirement savings. She moved in with Tom and his family, creating tension in their household. The stress of the situation caused Helen to have a mild heart attack, and she spent 3 days in the hospital, ironically, in the same ward where Derek had pretended to be dying. Maya started seeing a counselor to deal with the trauma of carrying her family's secret for months and the guilt of how everything unraveled. The counselor explained that Maya had been put in an impossible position, forced to choose between exposing her mother's fraud and protecting the family members being scammed. Derek also began therapy, working through his complicated feelings about his cancer recovery and the attention he'd received for being sick. His therapist noted that many young cancer survivors struggle with identity after recovery, but Derek's case was extreme because he continued getting sick kid attention long after he was healthy. The art exhibition space donated by the community was given to another young artist whose family couldn't afford the rental fee. Derek's paintings, the ones that hadn't been destroyed, were returned to him, but he stopped painting altogether after everything came out. 6 months later, Maya was accepted to college with a full academic scholarship. Her grades had improved dramatically once the stress of keeping her family's secret was lifted. In her college application essay, she wrote about learning the difference between loyalty and enabling destructive behavior. Derek repeated his junior year of high school after missing too much school during his fake illness period. He joined the track team and discovered he was actually good at running, something he'd never tried before because he'd been sick during his early high school years. Lisa found work as a home health aide after losing her nursing license. She was making a quarter of her previous salary and had to file for bankruptcy. The house went into foreclosure, and she moved into a small apartment. She's required to make monthly restitution payments to family members for the next 10 years. The family dynamics never fully recovered. Helen eventually forgave Derek because he was a minor when the fraud started, but her relationship with Lisa remained strained. Tom and his wife divorced after the financial stress of supporting Helen and dealing with the fraud fallout became too much for their marriage. Maya and Derek are slowly rebuilding their relationship as adults. Derek acknowledges that Maya was trying to protect the family, even though her method was destructive. Maya admits she could have found a different way to expose the truth that didn't involve destroying Derek's art supplies. The community learned to be more cautious about fundraising efforts after the scandal. Local churches and organizations now require medical documentation and regular updates before organizing donation drives for medical expenses. 3 years later, Derek is genuinely thriving as a healthy young adult. He's studying business in college and volunteers with a support group for teenage cancer survivors. He speaks honestly about his recovery and the complicated aftermath of surviving a disease that k*LLS many kids his age. Maya graduated college with honors and is now working for a non-profit that helps families navigate insurance and medical billing after serious illnesses. Her experience with her family's fraud gave her unique insight into how medical financial stress can drive people to make desperate choices. Lisa has completed therapy and admits she made terrible choices when overwhelmed by medical debt and fear about Derek's future. She says the fraud started as a plan to catch up on bills and grew beyond her control when donations kept coming in. She knows she destroyed her family's trust and continues working to make financial amends. The destroyed art supplies were never replaced, but Derek eventually started drawing again in college. His new artwork focuses on themes of truth and recovery rather than illness and death. He's planning a legitimate art exhibition for his senior project, funded through proper channels. Looking back, Maya says she'd handle things differently if faced with the same situation today. She'd document everything and approach a trusted adult outside the immediate family rather than trying to expose the fraud dramatically. But she doesn't regret stopping the lies before more people were hurt. The family fraud cost everyone involved far more than money. It destroyed relationships, damaged reputations, and created trauma that took years to process. But it also revealed Maya's courage in standing up for truth when everyone around her was accepting lies because the alternative was too painful to consider. Maya's actions that morning weren't about destroying her brother's last wish, they were about preventing a bigger lie from continuing to hurt people she loved. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to let them keep hurting themselves and others, even when that truth comes with a terrible price. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you for understanding how complex family loyalty can become when secrets and lies get tangled up with love and fear. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone's feelings and protecting them from their own destructive choices? Sometimes being the person who speaks truth makes you the family villain, but it's still the right thing to do.